Before we get into this video, I just need to make a brief announcement, just to contextualize some of the stuff that goes on here. Yep, if you check the date this was posted compared to the date the last part was posted, there's been quite a long time between parts. Thing is, I did record this almost immediately after the previous part. Unfortunately, I was kept from posting it due to, well, the fact that I was struck down by the plague. Yep. The past few weeks have been some of my unluckiest records of getting sick in my entire life. Basically, while I was recording this one part, I felt like I was coming down with a bit of a cold. And if my commentary sounds a little bit weird in this one particular part, that's why. So, yep. Good thing this was a pretty short part, because by the end of this, I actually really wasn't feeling very well, and so I had to stop, so no more parts I could really record after that. The thing was, I was kind of too sick to record the Fact of the Day segment at the end, which prevented me from posting this. So, after about a week, I was feeling better, almost exactly ready to get back and record the rest of this, and yeah. And then I basically got sick again. And that lasted for pretty much a week. And then, I kid you not, the end of the second week of straight sickness, I'm starting to feel better again, ready to get back into recording, and I get a cold again! Yep, I'm not joking, that actually happened. I was effectively continuously sick for 3 straight weeks. Not fun. So, yep. But anyway, just to contextualize this, if my voice sounds a bit weird in this upcoming video, it's because I was just starting to come down with my first bout of sickness here. So, yeah, that's why. Anyway, my apologies to those who put up with the very long delay here, and let's get right back to it. Welcome back to Age of Empires 2. Last time, we defeated the Earl of Shrewsbury, who was really stubborn and kept fighting on despite, took us ages to find that last villager. But now, hopefully, what remains of our army and our trebuchets shall move on and take these out and finally start pressing into the English's main base. Our objective is to plant our flag right here. And that bombard tower is not going to make things any easier for us. How did that guy get all the way over there? Wow, we've got a bombard cannon all the way over there. That's actually kind of cool. Speaking of all the way over there, what I want to do is I think I might want to actually start mining gold from that mine over there, because these villagers have mined out the gold in the Burgundy area. So their job is to go over here, build a mining camp, and start mining that gold. That is probably the last quote-unquote safe area of gold on this map, so it's pretty imperative that we actually, actually start using it. Because, yeah, this guy's already mined out all of his gold and pretty much completely, taken out all the resources in that area. So, we'll need to replenish our forces a bit. So I'll get a few more paladins. Is that gate still locked? Okay, it's good, it's unlocked. We pretty much never need to worry about attacks from this side ever again, so that's a pretty good thing. Hey, some of our arbalests are surviving. We don't have siege engineers yet, really. Siege engineers is amazingly useful, especially in situations like this. Now the question is, do I fill out my remaining forces with trebuchets or with bombard cannons? Apparently there was an enemy there, but it's gone now. I probably should repair these damaged trebuchets. Where's a free villager? I mean, technically speaking, we don't have any free villagers at this point, but... yeah, you are going to go repair those. I might get maybe a couple more trebuchets. Because we are definitely going to need trebuchets in the next few areas. We're also going to need some blacksmith technologies. But I might get some more bombard cannons, actually. So maybe 5 of those. yes, Paladins should be able to take out... Basically, the main red British army seems to consist of Cavaliers, which we're going to need some more Halberdiers for, Cavaliers, Longbowmen, and some siege weapons. Our Paladins should easily be able to handle the siege weapons. For the Cavaliers, we're going to need some more Halberdiers to take them out. And... yeah, our Paladins should be able to take out the Longbowmen as well. So hopefully, we're going to have pretty much just enough units to completely lay siege to the... well, not so much lay siege. We might want to use a little bit of subterfuge here, because the main gate is very heavily defended, but there is a sort of not quite as heavily guarded back way in that we might actually want to use. Now, we'll need to get the trade card over here. Technically, these two should be on the forefront of the battlefield, but I really don't want to see them die. Better armor, and you're finished with repairing. So, that's quite a lot of trebuchets. That's totally intentional because, in fact, we might actually want to start taking these towers out right now because bombard cannons have a range of 12. I'm not sure how they got +1 range, actually. Oh, that must have been siege engineers, actually. Yeah, that gives range to siege weapons, except for rams, obviously. 8 + 3, so they have a range of 11. Okay, some paladins will need to defend. And population limit. Okay, so we lost... okay. Can't make another one of those. Okay, that was quick. And that's too far. See, this is the annoying thing about using trebuchets. I actually think bombard cannons might be able to take out, I'll use these other bombard cannons as well, might be able to outrange these towers as well. And they're certainly a bit more mobile and versatile than trebuchets are, like I mentioned in one of my previous Fact of the Days. So let's see if they can... yes, they can shoot this without being in its range. Very useful, that. And with siege engineers, our siege weapons do more damage to buildings, which is really going to help. Except we kind of need to guard them from enemy cavalry. We also need to guard our own cavalry from our own bombard cannons. Yeah, that's kind of annoying. Okay, so... we probably have a large enough army to get ready to strike at the main British base here. But first we'll just scout ahead a tiny bit to see if they have any more units over here. Okay, right, they have a bombard tower and a regular tower. And up here they have a second bombard tower. Bombard towers, they seem to have the same range as others, but basically we want to use our trebuchets to take out those bombard towers because those things are really threatening. Really threatening. How about I assign you guys to guard the bombard cannons? And you guys are going to go guard the trebuchets. It should hopefully be alright. Yeah, I've got to watch out for that one guy over there. Did I say one guy? I meant several longbowmen. Oh wow, nice shot from bombard cannon there. Okay, these towers should be going down quickly. Okay, now bombard cannons take out that. That's gone. Trebuchets. Trebuchets are a much safer option for taking out bombard towers, but... yeah, you guys are better served against cavalry. But bombard cannons still outrange bombard towers. Just really got to watch out for those bombard towers. If they actually hit stuff, it's pretty devastating. Who's How did you get over there? This is the thing with bombard cannons. They're a lot less resilient to arrows than most other siege weapons are. Is that thing down? Yes, it is. Oh, come on. Surely you can hit that guy eventually. There we go. Okay, now we will keep moving. Now this road leads right into the main enemy base. We're not going to take that road. Instead, we're going to go up here and be greeted with another bombard tower. Trebuchets, you know what to do. And bombard cannons as well. The rest of you will watch for enemy attacks down here. Now, to send the trade card or not to send it, that's the real question here. Just got to be wary of attacks from behind, because if we lose this, we lose everything. Okay, that's down. Pack it up. What I probably want to do is assign the trade cart to this group of paladins and then have them all, like, surrounded in a box formation. That'd be pretty useful. Alright, the rest of you head up here. Because, yes, while it... See, here's the main gate. Now, it looks heavily guarded as it is. It's actually even more heavily guarded than it looks because there's... They have several layers of gates, plus... they're all guarded by bombard towers. Several layers of gates, and... castles, bombard towers. That place is incredibly heavily guarded. But, if we go up here... past the tree G's and the tree K. Yeah, Scenario Editor has a whole bunch of different tree types that all have different names. You guys are going to go around here. Aha! Look, there's an enemy tower, but it's just a guard tower, not a keep like most of them, so that's a bit weird. But, if we keep going, we'll see a castle. Need to send some paladins out to take those longbowmen down. Yeah, we want to smash this castle as soon as possible. Now, as annoying as this seems, this castle is probably the strongest the enemy has in terms of defenses on this side, so that's kind of why we want to take this out as soon as we can. Okay, good. Now that's down. Let's keep moving. Because I believe this road here will actually get us around the back way of the enemy base. So we'll pretty much be able to sneak through their main... Just gotta be wary of attacks from behind because we're, of course, kind of getting into their base. The back way, Scorpions! Forgot about those. Okay, they die very quickly to paladins, so that's not really that much of a hassle. Yeah, the Scorpions, because of the fact that their shots pass through intervening units, you kind of have to watch out for, Gonna go box formation here to protect our siege weapons and the trade cart. Yeah, Scorpions can kind of get through your box formations a bit, so... Okay, here we go. Now, this gate is merely, double-layered, but there aren't as many bombard towers here as there are guarding the other areas. In fact, we can completely avoid having to smash our way through two gates by... that trade cart's a bit too close to enemy lines. By simply attacking the walls here. Walls usually go down... well, really fast with these trebuchets, usually go down faster than gates do, and there was a weird quirk with the AI in early versions of this game. I don't think in the HD edition anymore, but basically the AI was programmed to attack walls, but not gates. And you could totally abuse this by making your fortifications entirely out of gates, which meant that the AI could never actually attack your, get into your base. Okay, there's quite a few of those guys coming, so we'll need to guard the trade cart. But if we can take out that bombard tower and probably those barracks as well, this really shouldn't be too bad. provided the trebuchets can actually get close enough to. You probably don't want to go there. Okay, yeah, that's stable, maybe a problem. Once we take out this bombard tower, getting to the main hill there shouldn't actually be too bad. Just gotta watch for the occasional cavalier. Almost down. Okay, right, we can probably leave our trebuchets unpacked for the time being. And let's see if we can actually get onto this hill right now. You guys just take that out. And yes, we've actually circumnavigated their main defenses. There are a lot more bombard towers up there, and there's one there, so gotta watch out for that.
Vive la France!
How else would you end this campaign? Well, a lot of achievements there.
A century of English toil, blood, and victories was reversed in a little over a year by a teenage girl. The 100 Years' War has ended. Even more importantly, Jeanne's acts reignited a sense of French nationalism. Peasants and nobles alike no longer belong to lords and kings, but to France herself. We will not let Jeanne be forgotten. Already statues and stained glass portraits have been commissioned in hundreds of towns and cities throughout France. Her verdict of guilt was rightfully reversed, and eventually Jeanne of Arc was beatified as a saint. Sometimes the outcome of history is determined by strength of arms, other times by happenstance. But in 15th century France, history was determined by the will of a young girl, the only person in history to command the armies of an entire nation at the age of 17.
And so we have much more fitting happy victory music this time. I actually really like the end of this campaign. It ended on a pretty epic battle. I mean, you've got 3 enemies fighting you, gets pretty intense at times, but when you finally do it, I do admit I took the sneaky approach to actually getting the final victory there. Yeah, would have probably been more satisfying to go in the front gate, but that would have cost the lives of more men, so I kind of went the safer option, which is going in the back way, but that's really kind of only knowable if you take the time to explore around the map and experiment, that sort of secret back way, which is a little bit less guarded, but still, it works. Anyway, so ends the Joan of Arc campaign, on a scenario that took over 2 hours, wow. Yeah, that battle was much more intense than many others in the campaign, and it kind of sets the tone for some of the later campaigns, where in some of them, almost every mission is like this, so wow, we really have only just started to get really into the thick of things. But, anyway, sadly, Joan's verdict was only overturned 25 years after her death, so, yeah, everyone pretty much, and yes, once they had tried her by more fair means, everyone pretty much agreed the original trial was a complete sham. I didn't really get to talk about this very much because the game doesn't get to go into it, but basically, it was so rigged that even at the time, a legal professional who happened to be passing by was asked to give his opinion on the trial. He basically said the entire thing was a complete sham, the judges obviously personally hated the defendant and wanted to get her convicted, and the defendant didn't really know what they were being charged with. All in all, he concluded the entire thing was a complete scandal. So, yeah, even back then, people realized how rigged it was, but considering that she was tried mostly by the English and English-sympathizing bishops, most of whom had been run out of their towns by Joan's army, yeah, pretty much all of the prosecutors and judges had a personal vendetta against her, which kind of didn't help her case at all. Despite the fact that, well, I don't think she had any defense at all. Where's Phoenix Wright when you need him? She did a pretty decent job of defending herself, as this game alludes to. In fact, I've got a book on her, and it says, wow, she managed to give seriously epic burns to a lot of comments that went against her, and she was actually really smart, despite the fact that, this hasn't been mentioned in this campaign, and I haven't talked about it yet, but apparently Joan couldn't read or write, which makes sense given that she was a peasant, but yeah, she couldn't read or write, but she was still incredibly smart and savvy during her trial. Basically, they constantly tried to trip her up by asking the same questions over and over again, hoping she'd eventually slip up. To that, she basically responded, "You already asked me that a few hours ago, go back and check the records and you'll find my answer there." Yeah. She was also asked a lot of really ridiculous questions about her voices. Things like, do they have hair or do they wear clothes? And her responses were something along the lines of, oh yeah, because that's totally relevant, isn't it? But, I mean, she did make a few slip-ups now and then, but that eventually they basically ended up convicting her on loopholes, but they were pretty much going to convict her anyway, considering that it was totally rigged. The guy who was in charge of the trial was a bishop who personally hated her for various reasons, and, well, he apparently went on the record saying that he intended to make, quote-unquote, a beautiful trial of this. Yeah, he was pretty much a Middle Ages Manfred von Karma. Yeah. So, basically, yeah, despite how smart she was, she really didn't stand a chance because the whole thing was totally rigged. But at least they realised that afterwards and overturned it. I mean, apparently, Joan even managed to sidestep a question that the prosecutors were sure would get her, because it was one of those where whether she answered yes or no, she'd be screwed. She ended up completely sidestepping it, and in a completely awesome way, so that's actually pretty cool. But the other interesting thing is, at least one good thing came out of her trial. Well, as if you could think anything good would come out of that, but at least one good thing did. And that is that they asked so many questions about her childhood and her background, and basically everything she'd done in her life, that documentation from her trial is basically the main reason we know so much about Joan today. So, at least one good thing came out of it. But, yeah. Apparently, she very nearly managed to get off with just life imprisonment because, according to church rules, you couldn't execute a repentant heretic, but they eventually used some loophole to make it seem as if she'd relapsed, and that let them sentence her to death, so that was annoying. She'd also apparently signed her confession document with a cross. That's apparently a way that people back then who couldn't write used to sign their name. However, we do have surviving records of Joan's signature from some of the military documents she signed. So we do know that, despite the fact that she was illiterate, she did at least know how to write her own name. And often it seems she used this signing with a cross as sort of a code word for, I don't really agree to this. But sometimes she'd use it when she knew a message was likely to be intercepted by the enemy. Again, as sort of a code word for, I don't actually mean this. So maybe her signing that document with an X was a final sign of defiance, but anyway, that's enough of that. Let's just see the full stats of this game, which took ages. Units killed! Wow! That's a lot! See, annoyingly, I think there is an achievement for killing 500 units in one match, and I don't think I quite got there. But I did, I think, get the achievement for raise over 50 buildings in one match and still win. Oh, but I'm just close to it. I think there's an achievement for 100 as well, and I was just off that. If I had gone in the front way, I probably would have, because I think individual wall segments count as buildings destroyed, so 96, wow. Buildings lost 1! Actually, wall segments don't count, because that one was my castle, so I only lost 1 building? Wow. Still lost a lot of units, but not as much as Shrewsbury. Admittedly, most of those were rams, but still. Burgundy didn't lose that much, actually. I've actually lost more than everyone except for Shrewsbury. But then again, I had 3 enemies, and they all just were all against me, so of course I'd lose more units. Buildings lost, Shrewsbury, of course, topped that. British, not so much, because I went in the sneaky way. Units converted, Burgundy got 2. That was kind of annoying. I think both of them were paladins. Largest army, I was just short of the British army, but still. Economy stats. I beat everyone except in wood collected, apparently. Apparently the British got more wood. They also did... Burgundy and Shrewsbury never collected stone? That's kind of weird. And I just beat Shrewsbury for gold collected, and I definitely completely smashed them in food collected. Technology stats, all of them, since there's no records for what age they, when they advanced the Imperial Age, my guess is they all automatically started off in the Imperial Age. Percent map explored, I think 86% is one of the highest I've had so far, but how did Shrewsbury explore 99% of the map? The thing is that computer players can explore much faster than humans can, so that's kind of a reason, but still. Research count, oh, not as much as, and I only researched 41%, but still. Society stats, I tied for most castles. Villager high, hey, I actually got the most. Usually the AI tends to have the most villagers by far, but I actually got more. No thanks to that second town centre I had. Burgundy only had 12. Oh yeah, of course, they had that one castle, yeah. And survival to finish. Apparently the British were considered as surviving to the finish, but they still kind of lost in the end. And once again, I had like nothing at the start before gaining an enormous army, completely destroying Burgundy really early on, and eventually dominating everything. So, that is it for the first real campaign. As you can see there, that was the final scenario. I got the achievement for clearing the campaign. So, that's it for this campaign. Next time, well, technically speaking, the next campaign we'll be going to is the Saladin campaign. I'll just give you a brief sneak peek at the campaign map here. Oh, the name of the first mission is a horrible pun. Joy. But anyway. So we'll be back to a relatively simple mission at first. The thing is, though, the Saladin campaign gets much harder than the Joan campaign quite early, actually. Even the second mission is actually not so much hard as incredibly irritating, for a reason that no doubt any of you who know about this game's campaigns will probably know why I'm dreading the second mission. It's not so much for being hard, but it's for... just something incredibly irritating. But before that, though, sorry, my next part, I believe, I'm going to be compiling all of the failed attempts at Joan of Arc scenarios and just splicing them all into one video. I reckon that'd be better because these parts go on for long enough without any fail channel interludes in them. So I'm going to put together one big fail channel extra long episode, and you can probably know where most of my failures lie. Yep, a lot of them were from the Siege of Paris, so look forward to those. And until then, I will see you next time. And now it's time for Ye Olde Fact of the Day. The Throwing Axeman. But hey, I hear you ask, you didn't use any Throwing Axemen in this entire scenario. Well, the thing is, I kinda had to cover the Frankish unique unit at some point, and well, hey, the Frankish campaign is over, so, I guess I'm covering them now. Yeah, there's a good reason why I haven't really had much of a chance to cover the Throwing Axemen yet, and it's that Throwing Axemen are one of those really weird unique units. Now, most civilizations have incredibly useful unique units. Like we saw back in the tutorial campaign, the Celts have Woe Raiders. They completely fit their overall strategy of being a fast infantry civilization, and they're really useful and they fill a very unique niche. Other civilizations also have unique units that are really amazing, complement their theme, and are generally a pretty effective unit to use. The Franks are a really weird case. I understand why they were given this unique unit for historical accuracy purposes, and you'll realise why once I read you out the history lesson for this one. It is very thematic for this to be the Franks' unique unit. It does make sense. The problem is, it's a bit of a weird one. The Franks are a cavalry-based civilization. Their unique unit happens to be a ranged infantry? Yeah, that's a little odd. But anyway, I should probably discuss what Throwing Axemen are on their own merits. Throwing Axemen are a very interesting unit, and it's probably a good thing that I've talked about them here, in that they're one of only 2 units that has a very strange property. Basically, they're an infantry unit, like basically a foot soldier, that has a ranged attack, basically. They obviously, as their name says, they throw axes to attack. Their stats are alright, basically they do a little more damage than an archer, their range is considerably lower, but they do more damage than an archer, they're a bit more durable than archers are too. But the main interesting thing about Throwing Axemen is the fact that, despite the fact that they have a ranged attack, it's actually classed as a... Okay, this might get a little bit confusing, but it's actually effectively counts as a ranged melee attack rather than a ranged attack. Let me just explain. Basically, despite the fact that Throwing Axemen actually do throw their axes and thus have a long-ranged... Well, not long, but have a ranged attack, the attack is actually counted as a melee attack for the purposes of doing damage, which basically means it hits on normal armor rather than pierce armor. This is a really interesting property, so think of this as almost, if any of you have heard of, I know this is a bit of a weird comparison, but I like to compare this to the Pokemon move Psyshock. Psyshock is a move that is a special attack in the Pokemon game. Basically, for those of you who don't know, Pokemon games, there are 2 categories of damage, physical and special. Then you have this move Psyshock, which is a special attack, but it calculates damage based on the target's physical defense rather than special defense. Throwing Axemen are basically the equivalent of that. They do ranged damage. Well, they do a ranged attack, but it does damage based on the opponent's melee defense rather than ranged defense. So it's actually pretty interesting in that regard. There is one other unit that does this, and we'll be actually seeing it pretty soon, since it's the unique unit of the next campaign civilization. Of course, the problem is that one is a lot more useful than the Throwing Axemen is, and complements its civilization's theme very well, whereas the Throwing Axemen is... You see, the weird thing about the Throwing Axemen is a lot of interesting applications that they would have. Now, one main thing you'd think of using them for is to take out battering rams from range, because basically, yeah, battering rams have enormous pierce armor but virtually non-existent melee armor. Throwing Axemen can do melee damage at range, so basically they can dismantle battering rams pretty fast. The thing is, the Franks already have the best paladins in the game, and paladins are also ridiculously good at taking out rams. Now, I did read somewhere that Throwing Axemen are useful for taking out battering rams from the other side of walls. In other words, you're able to destroy the battering rams without risking opening your gates. That is actually quite a useful niche, but the thing is, that's probably the one and only thing I can think Throwing Axemen are useful for, and it's a very, very situational role. Basically, it's kinda weird. Like, you'd think that, hey, you know, if the Franks specialize mostly in cavalry, maybe the Throwing Axemen is good for taking out pikemen, which are cavalry's natural weakness. Well, they sort of are, but they're really no better at taking out pikemen than infantry or just, you know, archers. And, I mean, the other thing you'd think is that, well, if you're going up against the Goths and are going up against Huskarls, then, well, you can use your Throwing Axemen to deal damage to them at range and bypass their massive pierce armor. I'll be talking about Huskarls later. Sadly, the Goths don't get a campaign in the base until the Forgotten, is what I meant, and so it'll be probably ages before I get to actually show them, but we will probably be seeing Huskarls at some point. But anyway, basically they're the Goth unique unit, and they have really high pierce armor for a foot soldier, so... But the thing is, though, those kind of units, you wouldn't really see them fielded against the Franks all that much, seeing as the Franks don't really rely on archers very much. Granted, the Goths do love to spam their Huskarls, which I could totally show you if we could play as them, because, yep, but... The thing is, Paladins are pretty much totally annihilate Huskarls. And guess what the Franks tend to specialize in? So that's kind of out, and of course, you know, you'd also say, hey, they're good against skirmishers because they can take out skirmishers without being, you know, subject to the normal anti-archer advantages that skirmishers have. But who would really use the skirmishes against the Franks? Because, you know, you use skirmishes mostly against, like, the Britons, who specialise in archers, but the Franks don't really rely on archers all that much. You're more likely to be facing pikemen when you're the Franks, and throwing axemen are just, like, I mean, they're okay at taking out pikemen, but they're not... it's not like they do a better job of it than any other unit, so... throwing axemen are weird. There are people who say that the Franks may have been planned to have had an actual cavalry unique unit, and the weird thing is that most cavalry-oriented civilizations in this game do in fact have a cavalry unique unit. I guess they thought the paladins were just powerful enough as it is. Really, with the Franks, you end up using paladins almost in the role of your unique unit, really, as the mainstay of your army, so throwing axemen kind of get a little bit neglected, which is a shame. Since they have interesting potential with that whole getting around pierce armor thing. And again, we will be seeing another unit that does the whole melee damage at range thing, and we'll actually be seeing them quite soon. They are a very powerful unit when used correctly, so it's not like that concept is totally wasted, but still. But, yeah. I should mention that the French in Age of Empires 3, yeah, they pretty much, finally, you know, just started calling them the French then. In Age of Empires 3, they actually did have a unique cavalry unit, and it was pretty powerful. It was basically a superpowered melee cavalry. Melee cavalry were pretty rare in that game, by the way. That was extremely expensive, but ridiculously well armored and powerful, and was so strong it took up multiple population slots. Yeah. But I guess almost like kind of like cataphracts in this game, except that cataphracts don't take up multiple population slots. But anyway, I mean, some think that maybe the Franks would have been better served with a cavalry unique unit, but this one again is historically thematic, and really, do we really need to deal with more than Frankish paladins, because they're overpowered enough as it is. And now it's time for the history lesson. The Franks took their name from the axe that was their preferred weapon in ancient times. They continued to use the axe into the Dark Ages, and their warriors were especially noted for their ability to throw this axe in battle. The axe was well balanced and could be hurled a good distance by a strong man. Franks carried several axes into battle, holding on to one for hand-to-hand combat. As they advanced, they could pick up axes thrown previously to replenish their supply of missiles. Throwing axemen were especially good against light troops wearing little armor. Carrying axes was also useful for dismantling fortifications. Actually, I should mention that. Throwing axemen do in fact have a very, very slight attack bonus versus buildings, but then again, all melee infantry have a slight attack bonus versus buildings in this game. It's mostly just there to prevent them from doing absolutely nothing, really. But anyway,